Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please remember to like and subscribe. Subscribe if you love the mighty Villa and love the fact that we came top eight in the Champions League uh, league table, whatever they call it. I don't know. I've come up with a name for it yet. Finished above Real Madrid. Jude Bellingham up there, shedding a tear as he sees Aston Villa above the mighty Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Milan. Uh, Endless number of giant European names that Aston Villa have finished above. A massive achievement for us and for Lille as well. I mean, look, Lille finishing seventh. I think it really does suggest because the Conference League last year was a tough competition, a lot tougher than it was this year. I think looking at the teams in it. Um, when you look at when we played that quarter final against Lille, I went to that game and I just thought they were really, really good. And they looked like to be honest, a Champions League team playing in the Conference League. And I think the two of us just knocked the stuffing out of each other. And I'm not sure Villa really had the energy to carry on that season to, get to the final. And yeah, got caught up. But yeah, it was a huge achievement for both Villa and Lille. And yes, I was at the game. Incredible. Got to meet some awesome people. Craig and Kylie from the Dutch Lions. Kevin over from Florida, from Belfast originally. A couple of Sean's from Ireland. A few lads from Tipperary. Got to meet Neil and Paddy off for the Liverpool McGrath. Finally in person, I met Neil as well. Just awesome. An amazing social event. The London Lions, of course, caught up with those guys as well before the game. Just an amazing event where it got to, meet lots of great Villa fans, some who watch and follow along the podcast, but also to just experience that atmosphere. I've put a video together, shot on my crummy iPhone camera of just the night, and hopefully captured some of the atmosphere. Because truly, the Champions League nights at Aston Villa are so special. It never gets old hearing that theme at the stadium. The Ozzy Osbourne tifo was incredible. Villa really have got those nights. The vibe of it, you really feel it, and sometimes when you watch European football through the years, you watch like the San Siro and you see all the flags, you see the smoke of the flares going across the pitch. You see like Borussia Dortmund and its wall. You see, I don't know, Real Madrid. There's just a special vibe on Champions League nights, and I think that hopefully people all over the world have watched Aston Villa and look at those tifos, look at the fans, the noise we make, the atmosphere we create, the smoke across the pitch from the fireworks, all of it, and then the performance from Aston Villa. It's just so special. We're not going to be there every single year. That's just realistically what's going to happen. But I'd like to think Unai Emery, this is not the first and last time we'll be experiencing it. It's the start of a process in which Aston Villa experience Champions League football on a regular basis, and certainly European football. So yes, amazing night. Awesome to get the result. I'm going to focus more on the Jhon Watkins thing here and Wolves game, but obviously I just have to mention the Celtic game. And same old Villa really. It was a bit like the Villa of last season where we started really fast, same as the West Ham game. Haven't really been doing that as much this season. And then from there, even at 2-0 after 5 minutes, I still thought, I don't trust this Villa team not to concede. And I'm not convinced that if we concede one, we won't concede another. That's what they did. Celtic, fair play to them, fought back. They didn't, collapse. I think what happened was the substitution of Matty Cash getting injured, Bogard to right back, and McGinn into centre midfield. I think McGinn had a poor first half when he came on. Looked a bit too amped up. Bogard going to right back. I think Bogard's really shown that he has something in centre midfield. I think he's a quietly understated centre midfielder. And I think if he gets a lot of game time in centre midfield this season, we'll see him grow into that role. He's done really well against Arsenal and Celtic when he's played there. Unfortunately, at right back this season, he doesn't look too comfortable, which is just the nature of it. It's not his natural role. Matty Cash there, we did lose something because he was constantly going forward. Look, I think he cuts back a bit too much at times. He doesn't, but maybe he's just been coached by Emery to do that. I think he doesn't quite have the ability in the final third to get beyond the player at times, but he's a lot more important than I think a lot of people realise. And you could see that as soon as he went off, Villa didn't look right. And I think this season when Matty Cash hasn't been there, we haven't actually looked quite right in defence. And as soon as he went off, Leon Bailey lost his man. Celtic get forward, get him behind, get for 1 goal and then 2 goals. Second goal particularly was excellent. First goal was just a cacophony of mistakes, which has sort of, been what we've been doing all season in defence. But in fairness to Villa, Morgan Rogers hat trick. Ollie Watkins ran all night long. He missed a few big chances. He got the big one, the third goal. Missed that penalty, obviously, very unfortunate. But if you watch Ollie Watkins live, I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. You cannot deny the work that man puts in is extraordinary. What a player. But yeah, I think in the end it felt a bit like I think Celtic did really well to come back into it, but I think Villa, it could have been 6-2, 6-1. The amount of chances we had, it really was like that. So yeah, brilliant to get through. Top 8, amazing to be there. The atmosphere was crazy. So if you can get down to Champions League night, I strongly recommend you find out a way to do it because wow, those nights are special. So Jhon Durán is in the process of leaving for Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia to go play with Cristiano Ronaldo for a reported fee of around 75 million euros plus add-ons. So that may eventually end up in pounds, maybe at about 75 to 80 million pounds if the add-ons all come in. So for a player who has ultimately not been a starter for us really in the 2 years he's been at Villa, it's a fee that is very hard to turn down. His salary, by all accounts, is going to be astronomical and way beyond what he was earning at Villa, and he was earning good money at Villa. I don't really like this thing that you see online sometimes of he's set his family up for generations. He's got the bag. I think that's the term. I mean, please. He sets his family up for generations playing for Aston Villa and going from Aston Villa to, I don't know, PSG or Chelsea, whoever it is, or even West Ham. His family's set up for generations. So forget this whole thing. His career now going to Saudi Arabia, I personally don't think it's a good move for him. A lot of the players who've gone out to Saudi Arabia in recent years have come back quite quickly. It hasn't been, what they're expecting. A lot of them are going over to a country that, has a certain way of life, and it's not necessarily what they might be used to, and it's a bit different, and it's challenging to get used to. And so I think for him, I think his development as a player would have been better suited to staying in Europe because, I've seen a few people say that Jhon Durán maybe he's outperforming his XG, his expected goals. Maybe he's, a player who is just having a bit of a flash in the pan. I really don't think that. No, I think there's been enough of his game that's all round shown. He's shown enough in his game that he's all rounded to be a player who, if he could focus and knuckle down and start regularly, I think the sky's the limit. I really do. I've not been as convinced by a player as when Grealish came through. I remember when Grealish was at Villa, there were a lot of question marks around, was he good enough? Could he go on to the top role? And it was always Villa fans who seemed to be the ones who knew he was good enough to be an England international, play at the highest level. But there were a lot of doubts about that, mainly from Gareth Southgate. And it's the same thing with Durán. I just think, no, I think he is this player who can play at the absolute highest level. And I think if you want to think of two performances where he showed his all-round game, Bologna at home in the Champions League and Manchester City at home in the Champions League. In both games, his link-up play was exceptional. His long balls into him, he won headers. His passing and his link-up with Morgan Rogers was really good. And then his finishing was top draw. So he's a brilliant striker, he is. But at the end of the day as well, he is also still potential. You still do need to see him start regularly in the Premier League. But the truth is, I'm not sure going to Saudi Arabia is going to be great for his development. It's great for his agents' wallets. It's great for his advisors' wallets. It's great for Jhon Durán's wallet. But I think there's a lot more to it than just finance, and you wonder how prolonged will his career be. I imagine he might well end up back in Europe at some point, but it'll always be a question of what if. And Yeah, I think it's just a real shame he's gone to Saudi for a player of his, I think, undoubted potential and ability. And the thing is, I think Unai Emery managed the situation as well as he could. This is just my opinion on it. Look, I mean, who cares what I think of it in the end? But I'm just doing this podcast and I talk about Villa, don't I? So why not? One thing you would say, you look at Jhon Duran's stats. Last year, 8 goals in 37 games, 12 goals this year in 29. So that's at his age, 19, 20, 21. That's an upward trajectory. And you'd have to think that, if you look a year ahead, if he was starting all the time, you'd have to wonder, would he just be scoring all the time as well? But in that time as well, he's had 0 assists. Whereas you look at Ollie Watkins and contrast that, Ollie Watkins' goals and assists are off the charts. So he's a different player to Watkins, but in the end, this town just ain't big enough for the two of them because they're both too good to be on the bench. They both have to be starting somewhere. You can't have a player of Duran's talent sitting there on the bench kicking up a fuss that he's not starting. You can understand it. He does need to start. He's at that level now. So the town just ain't too big enough. They don't play well together. So in the end, the decision had to be made. Who goes? Obviously, this bid now from Arsenal for Watkins at 60 million quid. There's a real question over, do you take that for a 29-year-old? But I think if Aston Villa are to look at the next 3 months, who's the more surefire thing? I think you'd say it's Ollie Watkins, just by the numbers he's got last season and this season, where he's been playing far fewer minutes than he did last season because he's obviously been substituted a lot. Look at him last season in the Premier League, 32 goals and assists, right? One behind Cole Palmer, who came top that year, well ahead of the likes of Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka, Mo Salah. That's an extraordinary number. This season, he's on 15 goals and assists. He's in 8th place in the Premier League, and he's played far fewer minutes than some of the player than he did at this stage last season. He's also played far fewer minutes than players like Bumo, who's on 2,000 minutes. Cole Palmer, another player, is on 2,000 minutes. Um, Watkins is quite well behind that. So if he plays every game 90 minutes, you'd have to think his numbers would be, again, it'd be top 3 probably. He's probably ahead of where he was last season. So, and you look at another player I'll talk about in a second, Matheus Cunha, 10 goals, 4 assists in 1,788 minutes. So, Cunha and Watkins are sort of similar-ish numbers, really. So, yeah, I think Watkins is the more surefire thing for the next 3 months. And that money for Duran, who's, in the end, you can't tolerate a player who constantly is kicking off in transfer windows to want to go. I love the man. I think he's left us with fantastic memories. I think he's an extraordinary talent. I really do. Could go to the highest level. I'm not sure he'll do that now going to Al Nassr. But in the end, even if he started at Aston Villa, if we saw Watkins and made Duran our starting player, and let's say Duran scored 15 goals by the end of the season, he'd be kicking off this summer when PSG, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Al Nassr, Al Ittihad, whoever, are all in with him. You just know that's what would happen, or there's a good chance that's what would happen. So in the end, it's just not. It's not. I think Aston Villa and Unai Emery managed it as well as they possibly could. I do have sympathy for Duran. He wants to play more. He deserves to play more because he's that good. But Ollie Watkins is there, and Watkins in the end is the player who has that all-round ability. Now, if he goes, if Watkins were to go to Arsenal, I don't think that's going to happen this window. But let's say it happened in the summer. Watkins, you saw it all against Celtic, right? The work he puts in. Think of that penalty that came about from Watkins hassling the centre defender. Think of the 4th goal from Rodgers. Watkins in the 89th minute, 90th minute, chasing down a defender and the goalkeeper. It's just the work this man puts in. I saw the same at Arsenal. The amount of times he gets the ball, just drags the Villa up the pitch, or is very similar to Mo Salah, I think, at times, in that physically Salah and Watkins both grab defenders. They've both got little mini rugby players or something. They really hassle you. And I bet if you were to ask central defenders in the Premier League, who's your least favourite player to play against? A lot of them would say Erling Haaland, Isak would come up there as well, but I bet you Ollie Watkins' name get mentioned a lot because he exhausts you. He's hyper fit. He never stops. He misses a lot of big chances. He scores a lot, gets a lot of assists, but he does miss the big chances. And I think were he to go to Arsenal, I'm not convinced that Arsenal's fans would be as forgiving if Watkins missed two big chances in a key game against, say, a Manchester City. That's what my hesitation would be on him going to Arsenal. And obviously, they play a different style. They play a few more teams that are going to do the low block against them. I'm not sure Watkins. I think Watkins is at his best when there's space to play in and around and run about. I'm not sure Arsenal get lots of that. But look, I have no doubt he could be a success wherever he goes. He's an amazing mentality and player. But I just wonder what Arsenal fans would be like if he missed a couple of big chances that in the end cost them a few points here and there. Look, and that's not me questioning him. I think that's the only thing that stops him being a properly world class player in the bracket of like a world class striker. That is, it's just that his finishing is not quite as clinical as I would say an Isak. But at the same time, he scores loads of goals. He's a brilliant striker, top plus striker. And there's a case to be made. He's the best we've ever had in the Premier League at Villa, and he's well on his way to breaking Gabby's record, which I hope he does this season, and I think he will now that Jhon Duran's not there. So yeah, yeah. I wish Jhon Duran luck. He's left us with some incredible memories, namely the Liverpool game last season, Bayern Munich. There's a couple of goals. He scored the Everton goal, the Leipzig goal. Amazing stuff. What a talent. But Watkins is the surefire thing for the rest of this season, isn't he? Because I'm going to talk just very briefly about Wolves, if you can bear to stick with me for more than a few minutes. Well, here we are on the tactical pad. We all love this, don't we? Right. Well, this is an interesting one. I am barely over Celtic. I feel like Celtic was like 2 minutes ago, and suddenly we're playing a local derby against Wolves away at 5:30 on a Saturday. Wow, that is relentless. That is hard work for Villa. And watching Celtic in the stadium the other day, looking at Villa, it did feel a little bit like I thought a few of those players looked knackered, and it's going to be hard work tomorrow. It really is, but that's the nature of it. We've got to do it. So, who is going to start for Aston Villa? I mean, the number of injuries we've got right now, I really don't know. Now, centre midfield, I think it's going to be McGinn and Tielemans, if I were to guess. And Kamara stays at left centre back. Kamara, what a player. It's just extraordinary player. He's a Real Madrid player. He is top level. I will literally walk to the top of Mount Everest backwards naked to sorry for that mental image. To get Villa and Boubacar Kamara to sign a new contract because wow. There's a reason Pep Guardiola name checked him in a press conference after we beat them because he is that level. And I would not be surprised if Manchester City are making moves right now behind the scenes to get him to up there with Rodri's injury because he's something else, Kamara. And you're playing as a predominantly right footer, left centre back in a role where you have to constantly make passing, and you are essentially the start of passing movement for Villa as well as having to defend. And he did an amazing job, I thought, against Celtic. Look, I think Wolves will probably cause more trouble attack-wise at their stadium. You've got the likes of Cunha, potentially Hwang Hee-chan, Pablo Sarabia. So it's going to be a tough old night again, I think, for Kamara. But the options are Kamara or Sil Swinkles. And I've watched Sil Swinkles once play for the first team against Wickham away in the Carabao Cup. And tough night. I think he needs a loan, really. I'd be very reticent to see him get thrown in against Wolves. Yeah, I think that would be a very tough ask for him. But if Emery does it, you got to trust his decision. But I'm going to say I think Kamara goes at centre back again. Kamara Konsa with him, and then at right back. Well, there is a question here. Now, fortunately, Andres Garcia has come in. Um, I'm not sure Unai's going to throw him in straight away at right back. I think he might stick with Bogard. I really feel for Bogard. I think I think as I said, I think he's an understated, really good centre midfielder, and I think he'll really grow at Villa in that centre midfield role. And if Onana's quite injury prone, which it seems he is, Bogard's going to play quite a lot there. And like I say, Arsenal and Celtic, in brief periods he played centre midfield, he looked a real natural there. Understated, solid, dependable. You need players like that in your squad sometimes. And I'm intrigued to watch him grow. And Unai Emery clearly rates him because he plays him all the time, a lot. But Bogard doesn't look comfortable at right back. He's not progressive there. It's not his role. I just feel sorry for him being thrown out there all the time. Whereas Andres Garcia is naturally a right back and he's quite a progressive one. I think he's going to stick with Bogart, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does actually go with Garcia because Matty Cash obviously is injured. I'll just say Bogard starts there. That is tough, you know. Ait Nuri is a top player. Again, a young player. It feels like Ait Nuri could go to, Liverpool will link with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up somewhere like that. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I mean, Wolves fans, if you're watching as well, if you can sit through this. But Ait Nuri to me just always looks like a player that he's really skillful. He's defensively really good. He always just tries to make things happen. And he's good at sort of linking up play, simple passes that then leads to something further, attacking progression happening down the line. Now, Wolves, they're kind of playing a sort of 3-4-2-1, 3-4-3, really, and under their new manager. So yeah, I'll talk a bit about them in a second. But then other options for Villa: Leon Bailey and Daniel Marlin. After Bailey played all game the other day, does he go with Marlin? He might do, you might give him a start and say, do you know what? I'm going to say Marlin. We should take a gamble and say Marlin goes in there. Problem for me down here with Marlin and Bailey is defensively, Bogart's going to need support, and I'm not sure they're going to give it a great amount of it. So I guess, if he does throw Andres Garcia in, Garcia will be more likely to be a progressive player, and he's a bit of an unknown quantity. Wolves, it'd be difficult for them to prepare for him. So if Andrew Garcia is somebody who's just charging forward all the time, maybe that's a way to pin Wolves back and therefore support Daniel Marlin or Leon Bailey, whoever it is, in that on that right hand side, and maybe just take the game to Wolves a bit. But yeah, we shall see. As for the left hand side, I was slightly concerned by Dean against Celtic. I thought he looked uncomfortable, and it's the only time I've thought he looked uncomfortable this season at left back. I'm hoping that the game against West Ham, where he went to centre back, hasn't unsettled him because he's been excellent at left back all season, very solid, very dependable. But putting him at centre back, getting him to pass around and all that, it's such a different role. The passing channels change massively. It's a different. It's very close to where he plays on the pitch, but it's a very different role. And he didn't play well, did he? He struggled. And I think against Celtic, he looked a bit off his game, I thought. So whereas Maatsen came on. Now Maatsen had a bad game against Arsenal, a pretty poor game against West Ham. But against Celtic, it looked like a player who's out to prove himself a bit like, he's a bit annoyed about how things went in his previous two games. And I think he did really well. So, there's a question there. I'm going to say Unai goes with Dean, but to deal with Semedo, who's a bit more, to just be a solid, dependable player there against him. But yeah, so I'm going to. I mean, Villa don't have loads of options now. We're going to have to make a centre back signing soon, and whether it's Joao Felix comes in or with Matheus Cunha as well, haven't we? Somebody's got to come in that Buendia sort of role. And if it's Felix, then lovely stuff. We'll see how that goes. But maybe Cunha as well. I'd be very surprised if we'll sell Cunha at this stage, given the relegation fight. But yeah. So yeah, team wise, I think centre midfield it goes McGinn and Tielemans. I really wouldn't be. I wouldn't be against seeing Bogard in centre midfield and having Andres Garcia at right back, but I'm just going to go Bogard right back, Konsa, Kamara, and Dean in defence. Daniel Marlin, I'm going to say, gets his starting debut and gives Bailey a bit of a rest. Rogers, Watkins, and Ramsey. But then don't be surprised if Bailey starts as well. So yeah, that's essentially kind of near what the team's going to be, isn't it? Then Wolves, three at the back, Matt Doherty. I mean, Wayno, Agbadu, good player, Agbadu, this new signing they've got. Then in centre midfield, so João Gomez got sent off against Arsenal, so he's out. Now, I don't know who they're going to put in centre midfield. Tommy, name's going out of my head. Tommy Doyle, Lamina, but Lamina's obviously there's all this drama behind the scenes with him. He wasn't available. He wanted to move, or apparently, he wasn't available against Arsenal. I don't know. I mean, Lamina's the one you'd want if you're Wolves, but if he's not available, it might have to be Doyle. I mean, I don't know. Sweet, interesting. Semedo out right, Nuri on the left. Andre, I really rate Andre. I like him a lot. Everything I've watched of him, very good, sort of tough tackling player. Front wise, Sarabia, he seems to be a favourite. The new manager, Matis Cunha, brilliant player. Although again, there was a bit of a set to there about his body language, wasn't there? And I'd see what he was at. I watched him against Wolves, and there was things he was doing that I thought I don't like that when he sort of throws his arms up and he seems like he's annoyed at the play. Someone's publicly blaming everyone else. Jorgen Strand Larsen is injured, which is good for us, I think. Could it be Hwang Hee-chan? Maybe Cunha goes up front, Hwang Hee-chan plays behind him, or vice versa. Whatever it is, both Villa and Wolves are going to have to do a little bit of square pegs and round holes a little bit. So yeah, but I watched Wolves recently against Nottingham Forest. That was a great game. Forest were a bit, sit back, hit you on the break. There seemed to be lots and lots of space in that game. Wolves don't seem to have too many problems scoring goals. Well, actually, no, that's wrong. They do, but they seem to get into the final third a lot. So I guess what I'm saying is they don't seem to have a lot of problems getting forward. It's what they do when they're forward that they're struggling with a bit. They're leaving it late to get away from that relegation zone. And there's a real danger they could just stick around down there. I think with Villa, I'm slightly concerned with how we're going to play after a Champions League game, a full-on emotional night against Celtic. It's a big ask for Villa to go away to Wolves at just a couple of days after. But, last season against Lille, we went to extra time, won on penalties. 3 days later, we won away at Arsenal. We can do this. Partly it's a mentality thing. It's getting yourself up for it, I think. But looking at, that Wolves team, that centre midfield area is the question mark for me. Andre's tough tackling. He's going to win a lot of tackles. Last week against Arsenal, we had the most tackles and interceptions for Wolves with 8. Agbadu was second behind him on 7. So I think Agbadu, that's going to be a tough old day for whoever it is, Marlon or Bailey, trying to get past him. Cunha is obviously the danger man. He's this season 10 goals, 4 assists, and as I said, in 1,788 minutes in the team that's in the bottom 3. That's a fantastic record. He's obviously been linked with Villa, 70 million quid. The Daily Mail have been reporting. He is, if Villa were to get him, I'll be bouncing off the walls. I think he'd be a super signing for us. Really good at holding the ball up. I think Villa are not great in the final third at just retaining the ball at times. Sometimes we just make the wrong pass, or we just, touch gets away from us. I think Cunha would be a big help in solving that issue. But obviously, he'll be there with Wolves, so that is the obvious danger man. I think it's a big ask for Kamara tomorrow. Kamara's a super, super player, but Yeah, I think if I were Wolves, I'd be targeting that position. Um, uh, you know, round here essentially. And Semedo is a player who likes to get forward. Last week, um, you know, he had 7 crosses against Arsenal. So they do, he's a player who's obviously very important for them creatively, getting forward and back. And I think playing in that sort of more wing back role really suits him. But for Villa, if Semedo's getting forward, I think there's a real opportunity there for Jacob Ramsey to go at Matt Doherty and find a bit of space in behind Nelson Semedo. Um, I think, yeah, if, like I say, against Nottingham Forest, it felt to me in that game there was lots and lots of space at Molineux. Um, if Villa gets space, that really does work to our advantage because all it will take is Villa to just win the ball in if Wolves are in the air attacking third, get a ball to Tielemans, a through ball to Rodgers, and then all that, I call it the Villa Stampede. We have a lot of runners, Ramsey, Watkins, Marlon Bailey, Rodgers, all those players charging forward in the finding space. And Ramsey's just coming to form now, um, 2 assists against Celtic, goal against Wolves, against West Ham, sorry. So I think Ramsey could be a key player potentially against Wolves if he can just find that space and he can charge at Doherty, and Watkins can get that movement going and linking up. And yeah, I think it's a big day for Ramsey actually, because if Semedo just vacates some space when he's getting forward, also Ian Matson if he comes in, him getting forward down that left hand side, I really do think this is somewhere that Villa could cause a fair few problems for uh, for uh, for Wolves. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, if I were Wolves, I'd be really going hard at Kamara. I'd get Hwang Hee-chan or Cunha, whoever it is, to really stick close to him and just get fire passes over that way. Even long balls in, just force him to deal with stuff that's bouncing or on his head because it's really big ask if Kamara's playing that role. But look, he's a fantastic player. He did really well against Celtic. He's played in central defence before, so who's to say that he can't do it again? If indeed it is him playing there, who knows? Maybe Mings suddenly is actually fit, or who knows? Throws a curveball and starts someone else there. But if I were to guess, I'd say Kamara goes back there. And then obviously in that centre midfield area, it's going to be a big old battle with Andre. That man wins a lot of tackles, a lot of interceptions. He's a real workhorse player in there with real quality as well when he passes. I think Joao Gomez is a big miss for Wolves. It's a big ask for whoever goes in there. If Lamina comes in, what's his attitude going to be like? Top player, he can play there, but it depends if he's available. And so who goes in there? I just don't know. Doyle, maybe? I just don't know. So yeah, a lot of question marks over this game. But if I were Villa, I'd target that Ramsey, Doherty, potentially Dean or Matson getting forward where Semedo is, and find that area, and then maybe do a little what Forest did, maybe invite a little bit of pressure, and then those through balls into the likes of Rodgers and Watkins finding that space. I really think that's where we could cause a fair few problems for Wolves. I'd keep an eye on Agbadu. I think he looks a good signing. Nuri there against Bogard or Garcia. That's a real question for me. I think it's a big ask for Bogard to do with Nuri. But Garcia could be an alternative where he's a more progressive player, bursts forward, and supports Daniel Marlon or Leon Bailey, and that could be an area where Villa actually cause quite a few problems. And so yeah, I'm intrigued to see what Professor Unai does. So there we go. God, I talk for England, don't I? Jeez. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Please let me know what you think the score is going to be up the mighty Villa.